Eva, could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to know Jesus?
I grew up in a Christian family. I've always known about Jesus and I've always gone to church. We moved around a lot when I was younger, and we lived in a Christian campsite when I was born, and then we moved to a community in Western Australia when Dad was studying. And then when we moved back to Tassie, where I grew up, we lived on site at my church. But it wasn't till I was about 16 or 17 I was at Camp Clayton, which is a Christian camp in the north of Tasmania. And I realised that at some point I would need to make a commitment, and my faith was a relationship. And so then I asked one of my leaders to pray with me and became a Christian at camp. I was fairly disruptive in high school and college and pretty keen to just do my own thing. I felt really hard done by after my parents got divorced. So it took a while for it really to sink in that I needed to start making better choices and to stop being so hard on myself about what happened with my parents, and to move on from that. I've put in a lot of work and spent a few years in therapy, and that sort of helped me grow into the person that I am today.
So you're headed to Spain. Why Spain, and why are you going there with WEC?
My church is pretty missional, so I'd always heard about missions, and we had visiting missionaries come and speak, and I was always so impressed because they could speak other languages, and that to me was just beyond clever. And I decided when I was younger that I wasn't good enough to be a missionary, so I'd sort of discounted it and was like, oh, I'll just be a seamstress or get married and have babies, like what I'm supposed to do. It was still something that I was interested in because it was just stored in my heart somewhere, and I'd never really settled on anything. I was always sort of didn't quite fit in, and I was speaking to a friend of mine from church one day, and she asked if I was interested in missions, and I just laughed at her. I was like, oh, that's for special people, that's for, clever people and, doctors and people who have skills to offer. And she just looked at me and said, are you kidding? Like, you can sew, you can talk to people, you can cook, you're creative, you're exactly what missions need. And it just kind of hit me that I had somehow convinced myself that it wasn't even an option for so long, that my mind was convinced of one reality, whereas actually reality was completely different from that. So I was enrolled at Worldview a couple of months later, and suddenly it was like the whole world opened up, and it was really hard. I'm not an academic person at all. I went to fashion school, we did collages, and I hadn't written an essay before I went to Worldview, so I needed a lot of help, and I was reluctant to ask for help because I'm very stubborn. And eventually, like a day before my first essay was due, I asked for help. They're like, well, this is the content. And I'm like, I understand the content, but I literally don't know how to write an essay. I don't know how to put the stuff in the thing. So I got a lot of help, and that was really good. And God started opening up my mind to the possibility of going somewhere. And I didn't want to focus too much on Spain, even though I love Spain, because I was scared of going to the wrong place. So I sort of was just concentrating on studying and not thinking too much about Spain, but always thinking about Spain. And it just throughout the year kept popping up. And I just kept asking God if it was what he wanted me to do, and if he really wanted me to go to Spain, to let me know. And I talked to my church about going, and they were really supportive. I talked to WEC leadership, and they were really excited.
You've done Bible school and you've done candidate orientation with WEC. Tell us a bit about what's happened since then and what have been the challenges.
So I started candidate orientation in 2018. I did a few modules at Worldview and then some modules in Sydney. We started talking with the leadership in Spain. They said, we'd like for people to come to Spain to see what it's like. But you've already been to Spain, so, you know, visiting probably isn't a high priority.
Yeah.
And I was like, when can I come? So in 2018, I went to Spain for their national conference. I spent a week at conference with everybody, and then I spent a week with the leader at the time of the branch, and then travelled around a few of the other teams and met everybody, and I just felt at home and so welcome. And I had some really hard conversations with people in the team about Spain and what the situation was like and how lost and hurt the people are there. And it was just really heartbreaking, and it made me really want to be there to help if I could in any way. And they also really encouraged me that I could be there and I could do it, and that there were people there that God was preparing for me that only I would be able to reach because of who I am. And that was really pivotal for me as well. Still, you know, in the back of my mind thinking, you're not good enough to do this, you can't do this. So that was really encouraging.
Wow.
People think Europe is reached because people are either Catholic or, you know, it's modern, it's not a third world country, so it's not really the place that people are called.
Yeah.
But there were a few churches that were really interested, and I went and shared my story, and we just connected, and that was really, really cool, and that was really a gift from God. And there was a few prayer groups that I went to, so there's a lot of people praying for Spain now, which is really cool. I got my visa on the 12th or the 13th of March, just before all the borders closed because of COVID. So that put a stop to everything pretty quickly. The borders for Spain opened again in July or August or September. And then I booked my flights and I emailed the embassy to say, these are my flights, can you issue my visa now, please? And then they decided that I needed to redo some paperwork. And this was late December, and I wanted to leave in January. So I had talked to the team in Spain, and it was going to be impossible to get these documents. Even the people in the offices in Spain were like, why are you sending this girl to us now? Like, why would she want to come to Spain? And the leader of Work Spain was like, because God called her, she has to come, we need her. And so she really fought for me, which was really wonderful. And the lady in the office was like, well, you need to start praying. We got the papers on like the 27th or 28th when no one should have been at work. And then they decided we needed more papers. And then they did new health insurance. The health insurance company wouldn't reissue my health insurance because they only give you that first year expecting you'll be in Spain, and then you'll get an NIE, which is like an identity number. And so then they can continue your insurance. But because I hadn't left, I hadn't got the number. And so they wouldn't reissue my insurance. But the embassy wouldn't issue my visa without insurance. So I was like stuck in this loop thing. It just felt impossible, and I just didn't know what to do anymore because I still felt like God was calling me, but everything was just so hard. Every step there was just something going on, and I just started to get really, really confused and questioning everything, but like still holding firm that God had confirmed Spain to me so many times because I'd asked so many times for confirmation. I was like, I can't doubt that he's calling me. I just have to trust in his timing. And I just really held on to that. But it was really, really hard. And I felt like every time I got close to the goalposts, they just would move further back. And I'd just be able to reach it, and then it would just move out of my grasp.
Oh.
And every time I thought I was leaving, I'd get emotionally prepared to go, and then I wasn't. And I sort of had to come down off that. And, you know, I'd say goodbye to people and be about to get on the plane. I'd pack, and then I wasn't going. And you just like drop again. And like your hope, you're holding on to this hope, and then it's just gone. I had a really good chat with Michelle, and I was just sobbing. And I was like, I just don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And I had a lot of friends who were saying, it's not the best time to go to Spain anyway. You should just stay home, buy a house, get a real job. Maybe you'll meet someone and you can just settle down. But I was determined to go. So after my pep talk with Michelle, I had a good cry. And then I went and asked for help and told people I was struggling and realised how many people were there ready to support me. And then I moved to Sydney here, and then I got my visa. It just came one day, and then they posted it to me and I had it.